if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the USHANKA show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.
Hello, comrades, and welcome back to USHANKA show. Здравствуйте, товарищи. Today I would like to tell you about hobbies in Soviet Union, and more specifically what items people collected in the USSR. And first of all, of course, what I can think of is postal stamps, почтовые марки, because when I was a kid, well, I still do it now, but this is what I did along with my friends. We all collected postal stamps. What was different that you couldn't really take the stamps, remove the stamps from the envelopes of postcards. You know, like here in America, you know, you buy stamps for those people who still use postal service. You know, you purchase stamps at the postal office, then you glue them on your envelope or a postcard and you mail it. Then if you collect post stamps, you try to remove those stamps. Well, in Soviet Union, you couldn't do it really because most envelopes and postcards already had pre-printed stamp. So you have an envelope and it's already 3 kopecks stamp on it printed. So there was no way of collecting those stamps since Soviet Union officially had no inflation. Prices for postal service didn't change for dozens of years. So they'll be just printing postcards on envelopes with the stamp already pre-printed right on the envelope. So that kind of stamp collecting was not possible. What you could do, you could purchase postal stamps which already, they call it gashene, so they already, it's a real postal stamp, but already has a stamp on it, so you couldn't use it for postal service. They already were canceled. Here you go, that's the word. So we had so-called Soyuz Pechat kiosks all over Kiev and Moscow, big cities. And this kiosk, that's like a newspaper kiosk. So they will sell newspapers, magazines, sometimes some books, maybe some pencils, pens, and also they would be offering for sale these sets of different postal stamps. And usually they'll be based on a topic. So there'll be like, for example, a set of stamps dedicated to some birds or African animals or different lighthouses in Soviet Union and so on. Or sometimes there'll be a set of stamps from Poland or Mongolia or German Democratic Republic. And you just pick what you like and you buy it and you add to your collection. As a kid, me personally, I was collecting stamps, anything that related to so-called flora and fauna. So any post stamps with animals, plants, flowers, birds, lizards, any living things pretty much. That's what I was interested in. And some of my other friends, they'll be collecting about maybe cars. Some would be collecting about space topic. We had a lot of postal stamps issued for the different achievements of the Soviet Union. So every time there will be new record, you know, in space, how long the person stayed in space or something like that, they will issue a set of stamps, and that's what you could purchase. You also could purchase, as I mentioned already, stamps from other countries. I guess they had some kind of exchange program with Cuba, Mongolia, Poland, because I remember those stamps were also for sale. And I was a little kid, I didn't know any English. So, for example, Cuba we read as a Suva, because that's the way the letters go, C-U-B-A. In Russian, you can read like Suva or Siva. So I remember that took me a long time to find out that it actually was Cuba. That's what the stamps were. And actually, I remember that one time I begged my father to purchase me this big set of stamps dedicated to the different animals. And that was pretty pricey. It was 3 rubles. So my dad could buy 2 bottles of vodka, but he was nice enough to spend that money, and he bought me this set, I think it was like 50 stamps or so. I was so happy. And of course, adults who collected stamps, they probably had different interests. A lot of them maybe were going after rare old stamps, like from way back, from the days of this Russian Empire, pre-revolution. There were also stamps from German occupation of Ukraine and Russia. So there was some rare stamps, like Germans in the beginning, they would, they use Soviet stamp, but they would make an overprint on the top with the German swastika. So those were, some people were interested in those. But as I said, as a kid, I was just collecting animals, birds and stuff. And I'm thinking now, man, I wish I was going after some Soviet kind of topic in stamps, because they're probably worth way more money than regular stamps. And besides the newspaper kiosk, of course, like as kids, we would trade with each other. So we will meet, and everyone will have the special album that has its holders for the stamps, and then you offer, okay, I'll trade this stamp for that stamp. And I remember when we decided with my friends, so we're gonna collect stamps, we made a deal so we don't fight with each other. Okay, so you're gonna collect stamps about animals, and I'm gonna collect stamps about space, and you're gonna collect stamps about cars. So then we can trade. Otherwise, if everyone collects the same topic, there's no way we could trade. So that's what we had agreement among my close friends. For serious adult collectors, there were official and unofficial meetups, so-called толкучки, or meetings of collectors, встреча коллекционеров. So they will rent some area, like a building, and they will bring their stamps and they show each other, maybe sell, buy, or trade. Толкучка, there'll be an official meetup somewhere in the park, usually on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And that's what people will be hanging out, bringing their stuff, selling or trading. And so that was the other way you could get different stamps, is through meeting with other collectors. But I said, as a kid, we were just buying them from the newspaper places and then trading with each other, because, as I said, just a regular way of getting stamps through by removing it from envelopes was not possible. Other popular collector's item was badges. So значки, we call them значки. So there'll be metal badges, and there could be all kinds, military related. So if you go to army, you get different badges depending what you become, then what type of military service. So there'll be maybe VDV, so the paratroopers or submariners. They would have all kinds of badges, which eventually will become collector's items. They had a bunch of badges on the sports topic, so different achievements, you become some kind of level of runner or jumper or whatever, you'll get different badge. So they will be also being collected. Then, of course, Soviet topic was tons of badges were issued. The next big meeting of Communist Party in Moscow, there'll be badges issued for that, just like to celebrate the 20th meeting of the Communist Party. Of course, the birthdays of Lenin, of Marx, of Engels, all kinds like that, there'll be different badges. Later on, they even had badges issued, like there'll be a soccer match between Dynamo Kiev, like my home town soccer team, meeting other team from England or whatever, they'll make badges about it with the score. So a lot of people, kids and adults, also collected значки badges. Next popular thing for collectors, and that's mostly adults, kids just couldn't afford it or weren't interested, will be collecting different coins and different paper money. And of course, there's terms for people who collect coins. There'll be numismat, I think, and then if you collect paper money, you bonist, because it's a bonus. So those things, of course, you couldn't purchase. And we already talked about hard currency. You should be very careful if you buy paper dollars, or any other foreign currency, because you can get in trouble for speculation, and you can actually get a jail time if you deal with a lot of money. But people collected currency from all over the world, as well as coins. And those is the only way you can get usually would be going to these unofficial meetups to Sovki, and there'll be people, they also have a special albums with the slots where you put coins, and they'll offer them for sale from different countries. So usually people are trying to get a coin from every country of the world. And there was also quite a bit of trade in old coins from Tsar Russia, which were silver and gold, and those of course were expensive, but that would be a good investment. If you want to invest your rubles in something real, you could purchase silver. So that was another popular things that people collected will be coins and paper money. And it's like, as I said, that relates to even like paper money from Russia from way back. Then we had also paper money from the German occupation in Ukraine, karbovancy, all kind of things. So that was a popular thing to collect too. Next one is kind of unusual. That's a lot of people collected pocket calendars, so-called kalendariki. So every year, there'll be hundreds of pocket calendars issued, and there'll be cats and dogs and pictures of different cities, all kind of topics, of course Lenin and everything else you can imagine. And some people collected them. Those were a popular thing to collect. So girls of course will be collecting cats and flowers and whatever other pretty stuff. And of course there'll be a lot of exchange because, for example, what they print in Kiev won't be available in Moscow or some other city, so people will just keep correspondence and send each other these pocket calendars for collections. Because a long time ago, I used to have a pen pal in Kazakhstan, and he asked me to send some pocket calendars from Kiev for his mom because she was collecting those. So kalendariki pocket calendars were also a popular thing to collect in Soviet Union. Postcards and envelopes, some people were collecting those. And of course, postcards, some people collected everything relates to New Year. And I think I already mentioned we never celebrated Christmas in Soviet Union. The biggest celebration in the USSR was a New Year Eve. So there was a huge thing about people buying a New Year greeting postcards, and then they sign them and send to their friends and relatives. So there were a lot of really cute New Year greeting postcards with this cute animals like squirrels and bears and rabbits. And then of course there'll be postcards for other holidays like February 23rd, which is kind of a similar thing to Father's Day, but it was called Red Army and Red Fleet Day. So that was greeting cards for that. Then March 8th, which is International Women's Day, postcards for that. And then of course pictures of cities and you name it. So a lot of people collected postcards. Some people, I don't think it was as popular, were collecting different types of envelopes, because we had envelopes with the picture to dedicate it to some events. For example, there'll be maybe 50 years since October Revolution, and people will be buying and collecting those. So it's another item for collection in Soviet Union, postcards and envelopes. Next one, we're kind of going, it's a little bit silly, but there were people who were collecting matchboxes, actually boxes from matches. And we never had those type, like in America, that it's a little almost like a tiny book. You open the page and then you rip the matches off. We never had those. We always has the actual little box and it has 100 wooden matches inside. And quite often they had depends on which factory made the matches, there'll be different pictures. And people were collecting those. And then, of course, back in France, whoever travels other countries, they'll ask them, hey, can you bring me a box of matches from that country? So people collected also matchboxes. I mentioned before in my video about smoking in Soviet Union, some people collected empty boxes from cigarettes. Some maybe who had money and then wanted to smoke may even collected full cigarette packs, but there was quite a popular hobby of collecting cigarette packs. And I've seen what some people would do. They will attach a big piece of paper on the door, and then they'll just glue this cigarette packs on that paper. So then you literally have like almost like a wall made out of different cigarette packs. I personally didn't know anyone who collected those, but there's quite a few pictures of quite big, large, impressive collections of cigarette packs. And it's not only from Soviet Union, of course, but from the other countries. And as I mentioned, it was a quite cool thing if you can find cigarette pack from America or something like that. And there was one thing the kids did, I did too, is you walk the railroad tracks because there's a chance that the foreign tourist will toss an empty cigarette pack out of the window on a train, and you can find it and maybe trade it for stamps or something else that you collect. Next item, some people collected labels from different drinks. So most our drinks, not most, all our drinks in Soviet Union were in the glass bottles. We didn't have any plastic bottles ever. Even Pepsi, that's only foreign pop. Well, we also have Fanta, but Pepsi pretty much it's always come in a glass bottle. So people will put the empty bottle in hot water, let it soak, carefully remove the label, dry it up, press it so it's nice and smooth, and collect those. So there'll be maybe alcohol labels and soft drinks and whatever. So some people collected those. A lot of kids and several, probably quite a few adults collected toy cars. So usually there was a scale 1 to 43, so it's 43 times smaller than actual car. And surprisingly, those were manufactured in Soviet Union. And people, as always, like Matchbox cars here or Hot Wheels. But we didn't have anything crazy like Hot Wheels. It was only real cars or trucks, and people would just buy them. They come in the box, and you don't play with them. You just put on the shelf, and that's your collection. So some people collected those small toy cars, like Matchbox size cars. And I guess some of those now is really expensive. I wish I knew that back when, because my parents lost about 2,000 rubles in savings in Soviet Union. And I bet you if we'll just spend all that money buying those silly toy cars, it will probably, you can turn it easy into $10,000 or $20,000 now. One of the really challenging hobbies will be if you decided to collect empty beer cans, because there was no Soviet beer produced in cans, only in glass bottles. So if you decided to collect beer cans, that means that you somehow have access to or hard currency bars, or people who travel overseas and bring some beer from there. And those will be like really cool because it was all imported beers. And some people had those collections. As I said, I personally don't know anyone, but some people collected empty beer cans from other countries. People who were in music and whoever who had good money, like extra money, they would collect in long plays, LPs, records, and of course you can collect ones made in Soviet Union. But of course, the hard ones will be to get something from United States or England, and those popular bands of 70s and 80s, Deep Purple, Iron Maiden. Those were extremely expensive. Like people were paying 50 rubles to 100 rubles per LP, huge money. You pay like your monthly salary for one single LP. So those collections were really expensive, very valuable if you collect like foreign LPs. So that's for people who had money. And hobbies for adults with serious cash, they'll be of course collecting antiques. And we call it antiquariat. And I think here in America, they really misuse the word antique, because if something 30, 40 years old, they call it antique. And I was like, well, it's not antique. Antiques at least 100 years old items. So people would collect icons, golden watches, and whatever old items which you could buy pretty much illegally because you couldn't really trade them. But if you had some money from somewhere, there was a really serious collections as if you collect antiquariat, antiques. And as I said, you can get in trouble with the government because like a lot of things you weren't allowed to trade. And some people also had a collections of the watches, usually Soviet made watches. They weren't really expensive, but there were quite a few different brands. And the last item that I want to mention was a collector's item that was only for kids. And I'm planning to I'll make a next video just about it because I want to show you there's quite a cool things that we used to do, like when we played with wrappers from chewing gum. And but that's what the mostly boys we collected, traded, and we like played with these wrappers so you can win this chewing gum wrappers from other kids. But I want to show you exactly how this game was going because I think it's really cool. But apparently there were several companies, I won't say companies, factories in Soviet Union. They were manufacturing chewing gum. One was in Riga, I believe, so that's Latvia, called Kalev. They were making different flavors of chewing gum. Then I think there was one in Armenia. Flavors, they were good flavor, but they didn't last long. Like it was really like you chew it for a couple of minutes, the flavor is gone. And those wrappers weren't really like, they were okay. The real valuable wrappers would be like American Wrigley's. We call them arrows. So those spearmints, peppermint, those double mint. Those were so cool. And it's another thing that kids would walk the railroad tracks in Kiev, for example, or Moscow, because hoping that some foreign tourist maybe tosses out of the window of the wrapper. And I remember one of the viewers were asking me a question: why Soviet sailors were so interested in chewing gum? I guess they could resell it at a huge profit because even wrappers were in demand. Because if you had double mint, the double arrow we call it, it was so cool, and you always try to get it. And then I think they had some wrappers from like East Germany, chewing gum, Tutti Frutti, I remember, maybe that was from Italy. So there was quite a few different ones from other countries, and we trade them. We used to trade them, we used to play, and I said I'll make a separate video to show how we played with those chewing gum wrapper. Alright, so there was my video about what the Soviet people used to collect back in the USSR. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I said, my next video will be coming. I'll try to demonstrate how we used to play with the chewing gum wrappers, and I hope you enjoy that and maybe show it to your kids because that was fun. Alright, well, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching my channel, and as always, I love your questions, your comments, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания.